I don't think anybody was really ready for how bad the pricing is about to get for all Magic the Gathering cards thanks to these tariffs. Polygon just released a short piece on how the tariffs could mean 25% fewer board game publishers just publishing games in general, and games getting likely less complex. That article is speaking for tabletop gaming in general, but we see the downstream effects in Magic and other TCGs as well. For those of you unaware, prices are already on the rise. With that though, we have some solutions, quote unquote, some ways that the average consumer can try and deal with this, because at the end of the day, we are playing a luxury hobby, but it doesn't mean we can't continue to engage with it. First part of this video is going to go over the price increases and some of the effects on Magic cards in general. Second part of this video is going to go over some potential solutions or how we can move past this again as a general consumer base. Before we get into the bulk of the video though, let me know in the comment section down below, what do these price increases mean for you? Are you pretty much status quo? You got your one Magic deck and you're always playing? Are you proxying your commander decks and nothing changes in that sense? Or were you kind of bordering on your ability to even play Magic in general? I'm curious how many people are actually leaving the hobby because of all these price increases. This is a big tweet that got a lot of interaction. I actually saw it downstream from the Ultra Pro post itself, so go check out their accounts and you feel free to just Google the announcements. I'll try and include them down below, the official ones in terms of links, but just sharing for all those here. Ultra Pro and BCW have announced they are increasing surcharges for all wholesale dealers due to the tariffs placed on China. Effective immediately, Ultra Pro has increased their prices by 25% and BCW by 34% for all products manufactured in China. If anyone involved in the COVID boom, if anyone was involved in the COVID boom, this became a major issue with supply shortages. So I suggest everyone who is in need of supplies, go buy what you can, top loaders, 5-row boxes, mags, sleeves, whatever, semi-rigids. Now, I can't comment on the whole like buying thing. Me personally, all I need right now are kind of sleeves. I have my, deck boxes that I need, but to be fair, I'm in a unique situation where I don't really get to play a lot of paper. I play a lot of paper over webcam, a lot of spell table. I don't get to go in person, but even when I do, I play Commander and I got my Pauper decks and my Modern decks. I don't have that situation maybe where I'm switching through a bunch of decks all the time. So I'm curious to hear about those folks that were maybe in the middle of buying a standard deck because they liked some of the recent changes and like where standard's at, or was just looking to iterate on maybe a new modern combo deck to get into the format. What does that look like for you? Because I know proxy stances are going to be a big hot topic right now. And I actually just recently did a video on that over a recent really weird situation on like Magic TikTok. So check that out. I'm going to link that video down below. But right now, our card games and our board games, tabletop RPGs, everything like that is finally getting more expensive. We're going to feel these downstream effects. And it's not like once these things are gone, let's be honest, tariffs are one of those things where it just shows us that like if prices continue to increase and like sales remain the same, capitalism just dictates that these sellers will generally just be charging a similar price, right? Like, for example, if a product was $1 and tariffs made it $3, even when the prices go back down, they're not going to go back down to $1. They're just going to keep charging you $2. It's going to be somewhere in the middle. Like you're still going to end up net paying more for what you were before. So it is still like a weird time to be dealing with stuff like this. And so even with some direct changes, this is a person I follow who is a creator of Alestrals, and they actually kind of posed an interesting kind of quote-unquote solution. So they're talking about how, given the tariff situation for their card game that recently came out, they're likely going to have to raise costs in the future. They're not changing anything right now. They're trying to hold off as long as they can. But to be fair, this tweet was on April 10th. Maybe, kind of situations change. But because of that, they're considering certain things like, switching to 24-pack boosters instead of 36. Now, of course, this is not Magic the Gathering related. Like Wizards of the Coast is not switching to 24-pack boosters, 12-pack boosters. Like they're not decreasing that right now. But I'm trying to point out different solutions that other TCG developers are going through. And maybe if the tariff situation gets worse, hopefully it doesn't. With the powers that be, I don't think we want whole economies crashing, but I'm not an economist, so don't quote me on that. I'm just hoping, as I'm being an optimist, I should say. But I'm just showcasing how different TCG developers are trying different solutions that may have Wizards of the Coast kind of pointing their heads towards. So this is, you know, kind of with that reduce in booster pack per box, the pull rates would largely be the same. There would be a lower price point, easier access. Our sets are smallish and better opening experience, more in line with the competition they're offer. The cons would be perceived value challenges and then change in formula after 5 sets and inconsistency across like different you know, certain like champions and stuff. But regardless, like the pull rates are the same, but again, a way to get around the tariff. So selling less product, but obviously no big changes announced per pack price as far as I'm aware for Wizards of the Coast right now, but there is good speculation from a great account here in MTGStocks. Many of you might be aware of MTGStocks and how they operate. They're a pretty cool website for in terms of like pricing and everything. So they wrote a little article that I thought was worth going over. I actually read the first little bit and I thought it was like kind of interesting. This kind of spurred really the point of the video. I was really just gonna like tweet about it, but then I'm like, okay, this is actually a relatively interesting topic here. So Harvey McGinnis, even if you've never looked at the S&P 500 before, or the Dow Jones or any other broad market index, odds are that you've heard something about how this week has been pretty bad for the stock market. A lot of crashes, and all of a sudden, you know, pause on tariffs and things go up, and like conspiracies around, you know, insider trading and all that stuff. Whole lot of volatility. So how does this affect Hasbro, which is what we're kind of here for? So let me just move my camera up a bit. So what are tariffs? Let's get one thing kind of out of the way immediately. Tariffs and taxes are taxes, plain and simple. More specifically, a tariff is a tax placed on imported goods. So there's, I don't know, a 104% tariff placed on China. That doesn't mean that China is suddenly going to start paying $1 to the United States government for each dollar of goods or whatever. Instead, what happens is the importer pays for it. Importing a pair of $10 shoes from China, they're not going to be $20, and so that's the 100% tariff is kind of doubling that cost, and so that's kind of speaking on that. Now, how does this affect Hasbro specifically? And of course, feel free to go ahead and read the rest of the article, the parts that I'm skipping over. It's going to be linked down below. So beyond the stock value, how does this impact Hasbro? More importantly, us as Magic the Gathering players. Hasbro makes a whole lot of things beyond Magic, meaning that it's heavily dependent on manufacturing. Sure, Magic has been among the most profitable branches of Hasbro for a while now, but that doesn't offset the fact that Hasbro still produces action figures and the like. Manufacturing for toys like these are almost exclusively overseas, and that means the toy division of Hasbro is going to be taking a large hit. And so there's likely going to be a lot of pressure on Wizards of the Coast to kind of manage this. Hasbro is definitely going to be going down a little bit in terms of managing this. Taking advantage of cheap labor is how a lot of our economies work, and so I imagine a lot of you that are chronically in line of some of the kids might say are hearing a lot of things about like Chinese manufacturing probably more recently. This presents Hasbro with two short-term strategies: consolidated manufacturing costs on the products they're associated with, or spread them out across the whole portfolio. It's still early enough for the choice to be an unclear one, but if I had to make a bet, I would argue that Hasbro would spread out some of the manufacturing costs to other products so as to not front load any one product with excessive fees. So kind of increasing the cost across the board so that even some of the more profitable branches for them take some of the costs as well, so that it's not that one division takes like a complete hit. Let's be clear, the tariffs proposed recently have been massive. Beyond China, Hasbro is highly dependent on Vietnam and India for its manufacturing, meaning its board games, action figures, and the like are all going to be significantly more expensive to produce. All of these points are more incentive for Hasbro to spread the cost out a little bit. Speaking of which, let's talk about Magic's manufacturing. Printing for Magic cards take place in 3 locations: the US, Belgium, and Japan. Fortunately, this means that Magic cards can be somewhat readily reallocated to the US. So that's a big thing that a lot of people have been talking about, how Magic's headquarters and a lot of its production are here, but still a portion of them are done internationally. Now, such realignment may not perfectly reflect the actual demand in those regions. The US will still likely need some degree of cards imported given Magic's regional popularity here. We obviously see a big portion of Magic's bigger tournament scene be kind of concentrated here, the lack in South America, limited quantities of in Europe and in East Asia. So again, big focus here, but it doesn't mean that there aren't there isn't a big market over there. That being said, like our shoe example, network effects will undoubtedly still play out here. Ink to print cards, for example, is largely imported, nearly a quarter of which you guess from China. And so this is one of the things that a lot of people in the whole tariff example aren't really understanding. They're not understanding why some of these costs are going up, because yes, in a vacuum, let's say, for example, you are working with someone that, even as an Etsy shop, let's say they are making a shoe ground up in the United States. I don't know how they're doing it, but somehow they have an operation in their single bedroom flat to make a shoe. They're selling it on Etsy. Problem is, all of those materials, like the actual production of the shoe, is technically untouched, but the materials that they're using are going to be more expensive. The parts for the machine for repairs, the actual kind of soles, the weaving of the shoe, and some of the other parts of their labor, maybe the chair that they're literally sitting on to make the shoes, the networking equipment that they're using for marketing, and like heck, the PC that they're using to post this stuff on Etsy. Other parts of the manufacturing process are still going to be more expensive. So it's not that maybe the price of Mox Opal is going to go up, but the price of the sleeve and the deck box, as we see, that's going to hold your Mox Opal is going to increase a lot. And so market turbulence in Magic the Gathering. Tariffs are limited to first order impacts and prices. However, that being said, those being the direct costs and tariffs themselves, collectibles like Magic are an asset class. And that means we need to consider not just how the company supporting them is doing, but also how the class as a whole is likely to behave given the macroeconomic volatility which these tariffs are inspiring. A lot of economic jargon, a lot of I read that well. I'm not going to pretend like I know how to translate that well. We're moving through here. Right now, sealed Magic is a bull market. Look at about any sealed product, collector, booster, commander, deck box, you'll see a positive trend. Importantly, however, this isn't just a one-for-one correlation with the broader stock market. So it doesn't necessarily mean that as Magic prices increase, that's gonna, that the stock prices and the stock market is gonna affect the prices of like Magic the Gathering prices. This is in thanks large part to better direction from Magic's management about production runs, set design, and splashy extras from serialized cards and universes beyond. Say what you want about actual cost of players about these products, but the secondary market is thriving, which is an interesting thing we've seen, especially in COVID. Like, for those of you that don't know about the reserve list market, like look at the price of Underground Sea in like 2018 and compare it to right now. You'll be a little shocked. In a world where people supposedly lost all their jobs and didn't have spending money, the rich got richer. Despite the increase in costs associated with tariffs, I don't see a reason for Seal to enter anything like the bear market volatility we've been seeing with stocks lately. Instead, if anything, it might actually go up, but whether or not it does comes down to counterbalancing factors between the sources of purchasing power. Magic has primarily bought two groups of people, players and collectors. This isn't to say that they're mutually exclusive, but the purchasing trends of these two groups are starkly different. People that buy singles, people that just play Commander, people that like to sell out boxes in bulk, people that play a bunch of arena directs. And I mean, arena directs are a whole different situation right now. Oh my God, what's going on Twitter with them? Like there's a recent thing about how like they're just like now being like taxed at the border, and so the viability of like winning a bunch of arena directs and like reselling your boxes like kind of like dropped significantly. And then also a lot of people are just not getting their arena direct boxes, which is also messed up. Like they spent a bunch of money, won a bunch of games, and they're just like not getting their boxes, and they're showing like proof, but like apparently there aren't any wins associated with their account, and customer support isn't helping them. Anyway, like, oh Lord, just the market's like in a weird place. So in a world of sealed product, I can see future where player spending goes down a bit with the rest discretionary spending, while people weather economic turbulence, which is also fair. The whole idea that only the rich can really afford to buy in the dip, and people will just be spending less money on Magic cards, which I think will affect specifically like limited environments, limited events at stores, probably standard a lot more too, but standard's a little bit like longer frame. And people have like quote unquote collections on Arena as well, and there is a free to play route, so maybe more people will be exploring more in that. But things get pretty interesting when you look at reserve list cards. Vintage Magic has been absolutely abysmal right now, not necessarily eroding in value, but far more from its highs, and essentially flats across the board. Players have largely exited this market, save for a few staples like dual lands and Gaia's Cradles. Thankfully, EDH and stuff is probably keeping a lot of that. Meanwhile, the collector base has slowly dwindled. However, the gold tier of reserve list cards maintains an air of safety to it, so it's not too far off of reality to imagine people taking some of their gains from this year's previous stock market run and putting into a safe reserve list cards. Tariffs, like all other taxes in terms of the wrap up, tend to make things more expensive. The reason things are so crazy right now, though, is because these tariffs aren't just high, they're volatile too. 1 minute they're on, the next they're paused for 90 days. So there's a lot of craziness going on in terms of a lot of predictions that people are making. And I think, we're obviously seeing the downstream effects when it comes to product, and product also translates to like board games and stuff. But if your sleeves are getting more expensive, that does prevent you in a way from being playable, because even for the casual audience that are proxying up their cards, to de-sleeve a commander deck is very annoying and time consuming. A lot of people might be frustrated with that in a world where we have less time to be able to do things. If the convenience factor isn't there, if our sleeves are more expensive, we are probably going to be building less commander decks on average, unless you're very enfranchised. And so for the casual player, I think this is where the hurt is the most, especially if some of these things are long term. And this is where I want to talk about some of the future effects and maybe some solutions here and some ways to move forward from a general consumer base. But just understanding that even from a casual perspective, as I was kind of going down that thread there, you have to know that the casual market is very different than the majority of people watching videos like this. And I think a lot of you know that. You're watching, if you're this far into the video, leave a comment down below. Let me know if you're actually this far in the video, because if you're watching a video about tariffs on Magic cards and board games, you're probably a relatively enfranchised player. The recording for me right now says about 1933, but it's probably around like 16 to 17 minutes for you. And if you're that enfranchised, you will probably have the effort to know that you're probably, on MTGO, you got your rental service, or you got the one deck that you jam. You might play Commander on Spell Table, and you have generally the resources you need. Like me personally, I'm happy with the resources that I have. I have my Modern Mill deck. I have some Pauper decks. I have a bunch of Commander decks, and like literally 80% of them are proxy. Like I literally have 100% proxies behind me. And the reason I wanted to kind of point that out is that is probably one of the better solutions forward. And it's kind of unfortunate to say, I think, for constructed players that want to avoid this stuff, but there is going to be a real push towards the proxy market. And it's one thing that I feel weird about pushing, because obviously Wizards of the Coast, and me having worked directly with Wizards of the Coast, statements like this can be a little problematic because they don't want to relate directly to them. But I think it's fair to say that a lot of people do proxy. And proxying, I think, like, I'm personally for it if it's for accessibility reasons, and there's some asterisks to that, and I want to explain that. So my proxy stance, and many of you know this already, is that when you're playing with me, I'm cool with full proxy. I don't care if you own the cards or not. I'm just here to play the game. And when it comes to an unofficial environment, even more so. Obviously, if you're in a sanctioned tournament, those are the rules of Wizards of the Coast, and I will align myself with those rules in a world where we have paid entry fees. And so if you have fake cards, I'm going to call you out for that. If you have busted sleeves, I'm going to call you out for that. But if you do that in a Commander game, I don't really care. Heck, even if you do that in a casual game, like if we're just playing like Pauper 1v1 and you're just like testing out a deck, yeah, that's great. Proxy it up. Let's play it. And I think access is going to be a big thing that a lot of our Magic community needs to promote in terms of the gathering. And Commander's very good at that, which is why I was mentioning that it's kind of unfortunate for our constructed players that it's hard to push constructed right now, because especially constructed events in LGSs, obviously a lot of them are going to be paid. A lot of them are going to be for folks that are going to in terms of they're going in person to win rewards, but a lot less people are probably, or a significant portion of people are going to be attending less events in person as the rising cost of other things go up. People are able to afford less bills, or the kind of margin of their net or the margin of their net kind of cash flow decreases. And so with that just means LGSs may probably suffer a bit more, especially in the short term. And so not only is the more recent times going to be about, or the coming up time is going to be about supporting your LGS, but also doing so in a way that makes sense for you. If you have the expendable cash flow, go to your LGS, and when you're sitting down to play Commander, even if it's not buying a deck box or buying a pack, buy some food, go buy a snack, like go buy something that they offer, like a coffee or a drink. Like I don't know what type of situation your LGS is at, but purchase something like that in a small way to assist your LGS. It doesn't have to be just purchasing the Magic product, but supporting the environment so that they can keep the lights on, so that even for the other folks that are there for free, maybe playing Commander, even if there isn't a table fee, then they're able to support that environment for these people, even if they're open one less hour to kind of manage their bills. Those hours that the LGS is open, you are able to create that welcoming environment and show other people like, hey, yeah, you know, there are people supporting the store. I can still come here and play, and create an environment where people can look into the window and realize, yeah, this is actually like a pretty cool LGS. There's a lot of people here. I don't need to come in here and, you know, pave the way or anything. I can just come jump in. And that's what it is for LGSs. It's showing that people are in store. It's showing that people are playing. There is an excitement. There is a buzz. And that is what we can do with proxies and with the decks that we have. Where I stand on proxies specifically is that I just need them to be legible. I really hate the proxies where it's just like write a name on a slip of card. And I get like in some situations, like that's perfectly fine. That's just what you have to do. But if you spent the time to like proxy things, like, I don't know, like it doesn't need to be color printed, but just like black and white, print them legibly or something, or like make the proxy readable. Like if you proxy, like y'all know those like really weird Lord of the Rings art where like the art is wavy and the text is like in this like weird curvy like line thing. Like if you purposefully proxy that card up, I will get mad at you. You know, I won't hate you because at least I can read the card somewhat, but I'm gonna question some of your decisions. I won't be mad to the point where I won't not play with you, but I'm gonna clown you a little bit as to why you're doing that, and maybe you're doing that on purpose. But you have to remember that there is a difference between, you know, proxies and fake cards, which is why I've had this image up. And we're probably going to see a bit of a rise in people trying to take advantage of other people, right? Like we're going to see a rise in fake cards because in situations like this of uncertainty, we see a lot more bad actors rise as well. And so we have to remember that the difference between a proxy and a fake. A proxy is a card that is intentionally made to be a fake card. It has proxy written on it. It is like the artist or like the symbols, like everything about that card shows that it is in somehow a fake Magic card through the backing or the front, but is meant to be a replacement or a substitute temporarily for a card. And a fake is trying to actually imitate one for one a real Magic card. I'm not here for fakes. I'm here for proxies. So you have to be intentional about what you're doing. And I think that's the line that I draw. When people have like fake cards that are like supposed to be close one for one, I don't know how I feel about that, right? Like I definitely, like if you print a card and put it on top, like that, like a piece of paper and you put it on top of a card, like that's cool. If you print out a card, like from like sites like Printing Proxies and stuff, not sponsored by the way, you can also, you know, print out like different arts and stuff, and like that's cool. When it's one for one, that's when it becomes a problem. And so working with proxies, supporting your LGS, even in the small ways, just by going in person and playing, are going to be really key to us enjoying Magic the Gathering, especially in the short term, if not the long term. And spreading out your resources, exploring some of the free options that you have, and lending decks in spaces, and just again being more open and honest about welcoming folks in, removing some of those restrictions that you have of like the weird commander rules that you have at the LGS and not spreading that to other people. Like these are going to be the type of things that we need to be able to start doing, especially when it comes to constructed events, where there are people that come to constructed events that have multiple decks that maybe are able to lend some of these decks out and stuff like that, right? Like we have to be able to do things like this, obviously within reason and within like trust and everything, to be able to create a welcoming environment, even in our constructed events that are probably going to see a lot less attendance. And so these are some of the thoughts that I have. These are some of the not only the takes that I have on proxies, but hopefully some of the solutions that are short term. They're not going to fix the tariffs altogether, but some of the ways that we can continue to engage with Magic. And if not, watching content, leaving a like on this video and commenting down below. Let me know what your thoughts are in general on the tariffs and some of the upcoming changes that we're going to have to the pricing of a lot of our tabletop games. Are you worried overall? Are you seeing other immediate changes that are affecting you? Sound off down below. I'm definitely kind of seeing it in terms of the products that I was looking to buy, some of the sleeves or cool deck boxes out of Tarkir Dragonstorm and stuff like that. And I was just like, maybe I should hold off, right? These are like these are nice to haves, not must haves. You know, I got cheap deck boxes and stuff, so you know, like old, you know, like look at this, like, you know, I don't know if this is cheap, but like, you know, this old Ultimate Guard deck box, like I have a couple of these, especially in the back, like, you know, whatever. I don't need to have super fancy deck boxes. I could just put my, you know, like this is like a, yeah, a foiled out or a lot of foils, one land spy popper deck, and that may not be expensive. The Lotus Petals aren't foiled, notably, but the land grants are. The land grants are foil, and so, you know, I'm just gonna throw them into a deck box like this. And so that's this type of stuff that we have to be okay with. Again, we are playing a luxury hobby.